Well, welcome guys. I just got done playing the 4th day of the End of Dragons expansion. If you've been out of the loop, this is a little mini-series I'm doing at the end of the day, recapping my big experiences, sharing them with you guys, giving a bit of a review and some of those early takes. Now, this is spoiler-free still at this point. I anticipate maybe a couple more will be, but I'm getting closer to the end of the story now, and once that goes through, I'm going to want to start talking about it. So, those of you who are really slow-paced going through this stuff, I hope you enjoy still having some spoiler-free conversation, as the rest of the community, I think, is really starting to get over that line and talk openly about things. Let's open by talking a bit about my progress through Day 4. Well, I've now beaten, I think, basically, the 3rd map, Echovald. Like, I could have fully map completed it if I desired to. I'm very close to having map completed it, but there's a weird thing going on with this expansion where all 3 maps I've been to so far, I have nearly 100% map comp, but not quite gone all the way, because there's like a couple of objectives I couldn't quite figure out how to get, and I figure I'll come back with other masteries and things. So I think I'll just do a quick clear later, and it will just go ding, 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 ding. I'll have them all. But so I'm pretty sure I've done Echovald. If I really wanted to, I think I could be 100%. And the story has now done something really awesome. There kind of wasn't too much in Echovald itself. There was a good amount and some really cool instances. But now it's actually gone back. It's actually meaningfully looped me back to earlier areas of the expansion, and not just for like frivolous tiny little conversations, but for like real content. Like, I played a mission back in Kaineng Center, Kaineng City I should say, that feels a little bit like I was in GTA or something, you know, more awesome stuff to do with the skiff, which, as I've said in one of my previous reviews, I can't get enough of. So I've really been very happy with this. It's one of those things, looping back, that I think was missing in the other expansions, and even like in the core game. Like, Heart of Thorns really could have used a moment where we spend a bit more time at Tarir, you know, after some of those revelations, instead of just this onward march infinitely. Path of Fire does have a tiny little moment where you can press F on an NPC in Amnoon, optionally, after the Desert Highlands. But, you know, a real moment where we return there and do a lot of stuff and deal with the Hummer and stuff was kind of missing. Likewise, with a lot of Living World, I felt that way too. Icebrood Saga, not so much, at least because of the Eye of the North. But here, it's here, in full. Not only have I gone back to Kaineng City, I'm actually going back to the first map as well, and I'll keep the context for that sort of elusive to you guys. So really happy about that. And you guys did mention to me that the story does take you to the Springer area. I mentioned in yesterday's video that they seem to have avoided that. Well, no, they do. It's just later on. Things are a little bit more non-linear, with Arborstone propping things up as well. I really think it feels like a very natural, real adventure and exploration of this environment now. Very happy. So I also get the feeling that I'll be back to Echovald as well again then. And hopefully there's even more story there, but my gut says no, and I'll be onto the final map fairly soon. I guess I'll just have to see for tomorrow. So for today, though, there was lots of both story and gameplay. There was actually a really good mix of everything, I think, here. Open world stuff, gameplay-oriented stuff, and story things mixed in there too. So let's first of all open up with some highlights of the Echovald. As you guys know, I've been really curious about this environment because it's not my favorite, and I was really wanting to fall in love with it. The first thing I'll say is they did do some really good stuff with the lore. Obviously, this idea of the Sylvari in the Echovald Forest has been a big thing. I think not just for me, but for a lot of people. There is some treats there. It's not main storyline, so I don't really consider it too spoilery to talk about here. But there are interactions between the Sylvari and the Wardens. There is conversation about the Juggernauts and how they're different to Wardens. There is conversation about the Forever Trees. There's essentially one condensed little area around a POI filled with all of that subject material. And I adored absolutely every little moment of it. I don't know whether any Arena have any like really big long-term plans to pick up on that for like main story or whatever. But they really do explore at least a bit some really fascinating subject material that I was head over heels in love with. I kind of get the feel that after this week's over, maybe the week after that, I'm going to start to feel really empty about this and wish I'd got more. But I can tell you I had a really amazing experience right there at the off in the Echovald, and it added some stuff that I would have been very sad if it was missing from the expansion to do with the Sylvari and the Wardens and stuff. So really very cool. Another highlight again was the fishing and skiffing stuff. Like, I probably took the time to learn today how bait and things work. I did another fishing competition. You know, I don't really think of the Echovald as a place with a lot of water, but there are these really deep, cool, tranquil pools, very, very low down, that I had a lot of fun with. One of the areas, too, had this incredible I think it was just a simple dynamic event. It wasn't even a heart, but it was about learning how to play music to decorrupt an area, and you actually had to learn songs with a flute that you could toggle in and out of using a special action key. Really awesome, and to do with House Luck Goddess lore. They really looked at like House Suheltzer and all that stuff with the Kurziks, and did amazing story and dynamic events around if you take the time to play them. I don't know how connected some of that stuff is going to be to like long-term progression and all those other collections and things, but for a first-time playthrough, they were really cool. Exploration, here's the thing, and the visuals of the map, I still think actually felt a lot like Tangled Depths. Like, I feel like I could take a bunch of screenshots of the Echovald Forest and a bunch of screenshots of the Tangled Depths, put them black and white, and then ask you guys, hey, which map is it? And you'd really struggle to figure out which one exactly it is. So that's mostly a thing with the visuals, but the exploration here is less frustrating than Tangled Depths. Actually, I think the map in Cantha so far that feels most non-linear and tricky to get around is Kaineng City. This map feels pretty smooth and pretty comfortable. Like, I'll see some weird map objective thing or something I want to get to, and it'll be really high up or really low down, and I'll think, how the hell do I get that? Look around, and wow, guess what? There's a trusty zip line, and the zip lines move me around in awesome ways, and I can kind of figure it out really quickly. I am super in love with the zip lines this expansion, and when you get to this map, they're really long, really cinematic, and really useful, so they've just kind of gone to this whole other level for me. And they actually do, I think, as well, deliver to a reasonable extent this feeling of climbing into the treetops and getting content there. You know, when I've always dreamed about Guild Wars 2 Cantha, I've always thought about climbing the sense of verticality, which didn't exist in Guild Wars 1. Even just jumping didn't exist in Guild Wars 1. So the idea I could have content on the forest floor and content high up in the trees, that was something I always wanted. And while it doesn't satisfy my imagination the way I always thought it would, as in this is a lot closer to what we've already been doing in Heart of Thorns 5 years ago, it is there. You know, you might find some awesome ruined Kurzik bridge way up high, and there might be a cool event there where you pick up a mask and 3 ghosts fight you. This is literally an example of something that happened to me, and hey, the combat was even pretty good there as well. One of the places I was pleasantly surprised by was one of the villages, the Angchu village, Mori village. So I kind of got a sense from the presenters of the official live streams before release that they had a certain regard for that place. But on those streams, I just kind of couldn't see why. Now that I've played it, I really love Mori Village. Very layered, very big, very wide and tall. Lots of little places to interact with. Learn about the Yangchu, who are my favorite, you know, tribe of Tengu. You know, the Kuromi from Kryta, whatever. The Sinsali, well, they're just the bad guys. The Quetzal, cool, they're parrots, but, you know, what lore did we really get? No, it's all about the Yangchu, the Day of the Tengu, Talon Silverwing, the Tengu that were actually kind of on our side, and lived there in the Eyrie and the Roost out there in Guild Wars 1. I think there might have been some Sinsali in the area as well. But here's where they ended up. And so I was really captivated to do that. They also had like this cool extra crafting system going on there, where you kind of build an arrow as a part of the heart. You can talk to all of the citizens. It's kind of one of those non-combat hearts, and I nearly always find I love the non-combat hearts because I really get to engage with the universe on those. And that's what Mori Village was like, with a really beautiful like little environment to boot too. So that's it really for Echovald. Generally my opinions from yesterday about how it looked, I think kind of stand. To be fair, the forest is a bit darker than I gave it credit for before. And it is quite different from everywhere else in Cantha. Like when I had this story beat where I went back to the city, it felt like really profound and fresh because it was like I'd been in the darkness for so long. And then suddenly we're out in this, you know, techno environment again. I haven't also seen everywhere yet, like the jumping puzzle. That really cool interior cathedral place we saw pre-release. I don't know where that is. I haven't been there yet. It strikes me that there aren't any real buildings to explore much in the Echovald. And that was one of the big fantasies I want. Well, I know there's at least one, this jumping puzzle. So I'll hold my mind on that until we eventually find it. Speaking of which, by the way, I didn't find the side tongue jumping puzzle either, and I've still not been to the final map. So yeah, kind of stalled on that, but I know that they're out there. Let's talk about something a little bit different, elite specs. So I'm still on Necro. I didn't really talk about elite spec the past few days because my opinion hasn't really changed on it. I think that the elite specs generally this expansion are a bit of a dud. But I will say, over today and yesterday, I kind of have started to really like messing with my build. I still don't think, as far as Harbinger precisely is concerned, okay, I won't criticize them all here, but Harbinger itself, I don't think that the mechanics meet the theme at all, and I don't think the theme is that great in the first place, and I don't think it's different enough from existing Necromancer experiences. But somehow, I don't know, I'm enjoying the build craft. Maybe it's Stockholm Syndrome. But so far I have played a Dragon Reaper, as I got my early Harbinger traits and swapped over. And I don't really like how it forced me to pick up a bunch of elixir traits, but I can't get elixirs until later, so it feels really unsatisfying. But once I got my first full trait line, I did pick up the pistol, I did start running with it. I played Dragon Reaper into a Ritualist Harbinger, so that's the other new stat type. And that was obviously a Condi Harbinger, and that was okay. Then I swapped to a Dragon Harbinger, so a Power Harbinger, which was satisfying in its own way. And now I'm on my favourite Harbinger, that's a Diviner's Harbinger. So Diviners obviously gives me tons of concentration. I think I put leadership runes on there as well. And this is a really fun variant because, you know, it's got the self-sustain, it's got the strength to get through quick fights, but it has this special component where it stacks so much extra quickness while it's in Shroud that I now have tons of quickness outside of Shroud, and I can use that for Lich form. Quickness Lich is one of my favourite things in the game, and so now I'm dipping into Lich. I can trigger all the Lich skills with a good rapid pace, so they all feel fun. Grim Spectre feels fun, summoning Unstable Horrors feels fun, triggering the Fear feels fun, snapping out a ton of autos from Lich feels fun. These are things I generally have never had as an experience on an open world Necro build, because quickness has not been a component before. But now it is, and I'm really having a lot of fun there. I'll probably keep playing a Diviner's Harbinger right up through the end of the expansion. Now, this has led me to a bit of an observation that all of this has been fun I've had because of legendary equipment. Legendary equipment, and you might credit the armory here. You might say this is the armory benefiting, and this is a brilliant thing about the armory. Specifically having everything be stat swappable, runes and sigils as well. It's really added to the new elite specs for me. Well, if this wasn't here, I wouldn't be enjoying this part of the game at all. They'd be even more of a dud than I already think they are. And slowly unlocking Harbinger, so like first I get like a QOL line, and then when I start getting the power line, well, I swap my gear to match it. And as I get my Condi line now, I might swap to a Condi build again to match it, and I can swap all my gear around. I'm having these awesome experiences, but I don't know how I feel about this, guys, because they're not representative experiences whatsoever. How few players are so unbelievably privileged to have all this stat swap functionality? Hardly anyone. So there's like this thing in the back of my mind where it's like, do I really credit End of Dragons for this? What do these experiences matter when they're not really representative? I still believe that the armory was not the right way of going about things, that the stat swapping is a brilliant idea, but not locked to this degree. Everyone should have this quality of life at the rare tier of gear quality at the very least. Like if all these new players running through End of Dragons could have this experience at rare for a minimal expense, I think they should have it. Everyone. And it should be pretty accessible at the exotic difficulty as well, quality, sorry, as well. But legendary, you know, can be a lot of work for getting there ascended. And I'm very sad that that's not there right now, and I'm kind of in two minds about it. But hey, I've been having fun. Now onto some even more juicy stuff. Today I played, because the story contained it, 2 strike missions. Up till today, the start of day 4, I'd only done 1 strike. I've now done 2 of them, and I've done the Echovald meta, all of which I have high opinions about. So first, let's talk about the first strike. And again, I can't show footage of it, spoilers, all that, and I'll be evasive. This strike was set in the junkyard in the Echovald Forest, another one of these kind of prominent environments, which is really green and really grim, very, very striking. And this was right up my taste. Why? Because it was very necromancy, very undeady, very edgy, and it did things I haven't seen for a while from Guild Wars. We were in an arena that wasn't a circle. There was lots of movement between phases, like as you fight this boss, you'll actually run through into new areas. It brought back some long, old, forgotten assets from the core game in a really efficient way, which made me very happy. If you're a fan of mine and you watch me play the personal story over and over, there's always a moment that I get to where I say, look at this asset, they should reuse this. And they did here, which was awesome. It had a bunch of vacuum mechanics, which I always enjoy. It had a bunch of condition pressure, which I think a lot of endgame stuff is generally missing that in Guild Wars a lot of the time. Like, I really like Slothazor because it feels a bit different because there's a lot of Condi component in there. It had some phases with ton of extra enemies spawning, like a bunch of trash mobs. And again, I think that that's something Guild Wars doesn't do very regularly. So it feels like just a really different experience. Identified some gaps in content diversity, filled them in. I had a great time here. As for tuning, now I told you about the first strike mission. I think we did it in like 4 runs or something. Again, I took an entirely random group. They had never played it before. And I actually got people to verify as well. We just basically pugged it. Random composition. There were no discussions about spreading alacrity and quickness and support and stuff out. Just went in there. Just took 10 players and went in there. And we beat this in 2 runs. So much quicker than the first strike of the expansion this time. The fact that I got it in 2 runs, I was hoping each would be a little bit trickier. I think 2 is probably a little undertuned. But then again, I mean, the challenge modes are for the grinding. So maybe not. Maybe getting it on 1 or 2 is the right way to go for normal mode. I do kind of feel like in the next couple of months, right after End of Dragons, when everyone's doing these daily, these are going to start to feel undertuned. But then when we get further forward in time, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, where that expertise goes away, maybe the tuning will be appropriate again. So I don't know. I find while I'm on this first playthrough here, I'm actually making videos out of it. I'm doing a let's play out of it. So I get pretty impatient waiting on team members, and I'm pretty impatient about the idea of wiping over and over again, just because I don't want people to be bored watching my let's play. So then that tampers with my tolerance for just kicking back and enjoying a few wipes. So I don't really know how I feel about this. I was actually really happy to be done with it in 2 just because of that impatience. But maybe that's just because I was making videos or something. I don't know. Overall, though, the tuning aside, I think this was my favourite strike they've done. Mostly because of the theming. I love all that undeady kind of stuff. The second strike was equally cool. So this is the 3rd strike of the expansion, just the 2nd I did on the day. And it was equally undertuned ? Like, this was actually a lot more mechanically challenging and tricky and demanding. But as I'll explain, that kind of didn't matter. So the strike itself is great. They picked a really fantastic locale for it, which I won't say because it will spoil a little bit of a story beat. What can I say? We have multiple square arenas this time. We hop back and forth between them. Get a bit of that, you know, Sabbather vibe where you jump out to a side platform and then you come back in, and the side platform you come back in. It's got a main boss and a bunch of sub-bosses, and the sub-bosses represent the various new elite specializations, so they get a lot of value out of those animations and things. I see a lot of really efficient implementation and a lot of stuff that feels very different to previous endgames, so it's really cool. Every phase as well, mechanically, poses a very different experience. Like, are you fighting a mech and a sniper, or are you fighting like a ritualist and some other characters? And they all have different things that you'll focus on. It looks like standing at range matters, maybe for kind of a flak thing, or keeping close to someone, like maybe in the Kadim fight, to hold their attention and change their attack pattern is a thing. Lots of ground targets all over the place. Feels like a really high quality strike, this one, as far as mechanics are concerned. And having just come from a lot of Final Fantasy XIV bossing, if you just watch my MMO experiences there, I can feel a lot of similarities there. Like, there are telegraphs with numbers where you can count 1, 2, 3, and you want to position people in the right place. So it's getting really intricate. Here's the thing. We essentially one-shot this boss. Again, random players just jumping in. We one-shot it, essentially. So, I don't think we deserve to. So, there's a certain mechanic in this fight where there's 3 attacks in a row. There's a green for everyone to group up on, and then a nuke across most of the arena that forces everyone into a corner. And then there's a follow-up spread-out mechanic. And it's like a 1, 2, 3 combo. And I actually have no idea how you're supposed to do it, how you're supposed to position through it. We were dying constantly, but we pushed through and one-shot it because there's no enrage timer. And resurrection abilities are really, really overtuned in Guild Wars 2 at this point. We had like 3 blood magic reapers, like just spamming transfusion and wells of blood everywhere. We had function gyros going all over the place, teleporting bodies. We just basically failed our way through it. And it's been known for a long time, I think, that... And listen, if you've heard some of the balance discussion, you'll see there's a very glaring lack of some thought in some areas of the game. There is an overabundance of defensive capabilities in Guild Wars, especially on the downstate. I think ArenaNet just really need to look at, like, the death penalty mechanic. It's there in the game, and it could cleanly resolve this kind of graveyard rush approach, but it's so horrifically tuned right now, it essentially doesn't exist. I mean, we could get into massive balance discussions at this point, but I'll refrain. I'll just say, I think defensive stuff is overtuned. I think that's been known for a while, and it meant I one-shot something that actually looks quite demanding. And I kind of wish I hadn't graveyard rushed through it on the one hand. On the other hand, I'm a bit impatient for those first time experiences at the moment, so hey, who knows. Oh, quick addition here in the edit. I didn't write it down as one of the highlights of the day, but it is something I want to point out. Remember all the population issues and how the game felt like really quiet and stuff? I didn't experience that at all over yesterday, or even in recording the footage that you're watching literally right now today. It feels like a lot of those mega server issues have started like resolving themselves. I still don't know whether they properly confirmed that that was going on, but the game felt way more populated. Find a lot more random people around, metas filling up, and so on. So yeah, that was good. Finally, one last big topic for today, and that's the Echovald meta, which was awesome. It's a much better meta than the other ones by far as I can see. And again, maybe in Xingji, I need to do both lanes to see a big cool boss. So, the pre-events here are really nothing to write home about. They're a little dry, a little uninspired. Lots of dialogue. I'm actually kind of annoyed by this meta because all the voice-acted dialogue fires across the whole map no matter what you're doing. So, for a long time, I was just trying to explore the map and enjoy myself. Or, like, play the main story. And I was being interrupted by the meta, and it was kind of teeth-pulling. But once I was actually in there, it was a lot more fun. Really great idea of the story, kind of echoes this idea of Guild Wars 1 factions with the Kurziks and the Luxons coming together against a greater foe, and you can really kind of see that there. It also rounds out the events of the main plot. I do recommend people play this meta as a matter of course during their main story. Try not to just rush everything, because I think I'm going to have a bit more context about the broader ideas of the main plot now, because I've done this meta, which is cool, and we've seen in other expansions that often happens. So yeah, the pre-event's a little dry. Maybe I'm expecting too much from pre-events, I don't know. It's not like when we look at the Shatterer that the pre's are the big phenomenon. In fact, they're really boring. It's about the boss himself there, isn't it? And that's totally true here. It's about the boss itself. A massive mech fight. That, just like one of the strikes that I mentioned a second ago, actually moves around the map. It's not just all one area the whole time. You're going to be running after it. I read in one of your comments on YouTube that a theory that this is to stop people AFKing metas. You actually have to keep actively playing the game and keeping up with them. I don't know whether it's that, or it's just, hey, the more engaging the content is, the better, and having things move around is cool, right? But this one was tuned. Now, I don't know what to say about the tuning. In some ways, it was perfect. We beat this boss in just like a random map, and I just threw a tag up within the last minute of the timer. The last minute, the whole way through it, I was on an edge. I was like, oh, are we going to make it? I think we can make it, but we have to play well. And that's the perfect place to be in. I think I can make it if I play well. And then it was a little bit chaotic. It was very, very exciting. Lots of things to focus on. The downside to that, though, is if I had failed it, you know, if I'd really fought my arse off and failed it in the last minute, it would have felt awful. So, you know, there's a very fine line between glory and agony, right, as far as a meta is concerned. For me, it landed in glory. We did it in the last minute, and I really got to engage with this. Basically, every new phase, new mechanics start coming in, and it has one particular idea of a clap, right? The boss will clap every now and then, and it will nuke everyone, and there's a lot of spectacle to it, because you've got a huge Zerg, so you see all these bodies going flying all over the place, but it's very easy to avoid as long as you hide behind a bit of terrain, which I think is actually really well telegraphed too. Guild Wars tends to have a serious problem with clarity in big fights. I didn't have a problem with clarity here. I could always see where I was supposed to go, what I was supposed to do. This is actually something we saw years ago in the Silver Wastes. One of the lanes for the Vine Wrath there has you hide behind a beehive. But, you know, it's very poorly tuned, so you don't do it very often, and everyone always hides behind the same beehive. Well, it's that same thing, but it's back here in End of Dragons. It's done really well, very regular, satisfying, cinematic. Favorite meta by far. And I'm very happy to say that after I was let down so much by the other two. So there you have it, guys. That is day 4. That's basically all the seminal stuff I did there. As I said before, I'm probably forgetting a lot of stuff, so please feel free to check out the full Let's Play episode I made. It's just there on my channel. It's also a little bit of a shorter episode this time. I'm a bit leery about being up so late at night making videos at the moment, so I'm trying to sort of rein it in a bit. That means that today's episode will start a bit earlier too, so keep an eye out for that. Have a great day, guys. Let me know how it's going for you. I cannot get enough of your comments right now. Really, I'm not just saying that. I'm reading loads of them, and really enjoying some of your feedback on any of these topics. And tomorrow I'll be back, I think, probably talking about the final map. the Jade Sea in Guild Wars 2, which I had very, very good impression of on the pre-release press. Let's see how it looks. Thanks very much for supporting these videos, guys. I know I've been putting a lot out. Those of you who have been remembering to like and stuff through all of it, I do seriously value. I'll see you guys next time.